morning and welcome to Rising. We are midway through the week. Hope you're just as excited about that as me and Briahna are. We're getting through it, I guess.
For us, Robby, I almost feel like that's stolen valor for working people because we don't work on Fridays. So
that's
truly,
right.
we're in the home stretch.
That's right. The other team comes aboard for Fridays. So although it's going to be a late night because there's a debate, got to watch that.
That is
Got to go to some holiday parties in between. Woe is me, the life of a DC political commentator. There's just too much frivolity to be had.
Laboring in the information mines, are we?
Yes, indeed. Well, what are we talking about?
All right. Well, President Biden made a pretty stunning admission yesterday that he wouldn't be running for a second term in office if it weren't for Donald Trump's bid for the presidency. Per Biden, the country is, quote, more at risk in 2024, and we, quote, cannot let him win. Meanwhile, new 2024 general election Redfield-Wilton polls find President Biden trailing behind Trump in 5 battleground states, including some by 10 points.
And Trump isn't the president's only competition. Biden is currently facing a walloping when paired up against GOP second and third placers currently, Nikki Haley and Ron DeSantis, trailing by 10 and 5 points respectively. Haley raised over $500,000 during a fundraiser with over 100 Wall Street executives this Monday, where she painted herself to be the sane Trump alternative. And you can't argue with those numbers. All of them bad for Biden. I mean, it remains interesting that the other GOP candidates who at this point have very low odds of overtaking Trump, unless something dramatic happens with his legal situation, which is possible.
Sure.
But the polls show them decisively beating Biden. They show Trump also likely to beat Biden, but it's going to be closer. So, you know, those battleground states, the swing states, polling there, so bad for the president. I was actually on the radio yesterday with a kind of conservative news commentator and who watches the show and asked me, you know, based on my conversations with you and the knowledge I have of people, young people on the left and how frustrated they are with Biden. He said, do you think, you know, they're really mad at Biden right now. Are they going to, you know, are they going to come back into the fold by the time the election rolls around? And I said, you can imagine that being true for a lot of different voters, a lot of different interest groups. This is the group least likely to come back to the fold, I think. Yeah,
because, I mean, young voters already struggle to get to the polls. Yeah. So those who have enough incentive to say, hey, I voted, I'm a voter, and I'm still not coming out, you have to rely on turning out people who ordinarily are some of the toughest people to come to the polls. That's a tough look for Democrats. Moreover, and again, this isn't every disaffected voter, as we talked about yesterday, but there is this category of disaffected voter that is specifically disaffected over what they see as one of the most grievous humanitarian crises they've seen in their lifetime that specifically affects their community. I'm talking about Arab voters who happen to be concentrated in one of the most important states for Democrats to win in 2024. Michigan. That is Michigan.
My home state.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's just a really tough look for Joe Biden, especially because they're saying specifically now in this moment, I know you think we're going to come back into the fold. I know you think you can use, you know, abortion or whatever other issue, which is genuinely important as a stick. I know that all of these liberal pundits are screaming, but what about a Muslim ban? Don't you know what will happen if Trump will get back into office? And they're saying, I'm clear-eyed about all of that, and I said what I said. I am not voting for Joe Biden. This is my line in the sand.
I said it like that song.
I thought you would like that.
I love that
I know
song.
You love Doja Cat, Person of the Year, along with Taylor Swift right now.
Yes. We should. I made this joke to Briahna earlier. She's going to have to hear it again, and she's going to have to hear it every year as long as we're doing the show. It's Taylor Swift's second victory, because in 2006 we were all Times Person of the Year.
Oh boy. Okay.
Let's comment on what we actually opened the segment with.
Sure.
Biden's admission there that he is only running because Donald Trump is still running again. It's so important to beat Trump that we need Biden. That's kind of funny for a lot of reasons, because at this point polls are almost suggesting that Biden is the person with the least chance of defeating Trump. So if we must defeat Trump no matter what, it no longer follows necessarily from reading the polls
Correct.
that Biden is the guy to do that job.
Correct. Whether it's the overwhelming majority of Democrats that didn't want him to be a candidate, whether it's all of the youth voter polls that we've seen, whether it is the polls that show that his age and perceived cognitive decline are really motivating voters, whether it's the polls that show not only would a generic Democrat do better than Joe Biden in this race, but Kamala Harris, who has never been a popularity queen, would do better in this race. I mean, this is exactly the pitch that people like Dean Phillips and Marianne Williamson are making from within the Democratic Party. I mean, I said this yesterday, but the Pod Save America crew, which I think is a good kind of barometer for how liberals are thinking in this moment, they were pressing him on Pod Save America earlier this week, saying, well, aren't you just Biden but younger? Why you can't really distinguish yourself from Biden? Why are you running? That is the whole point. America wants Biden but younger. You know,
yeah. They voted for him last time.
Yes.
They elected Biden but younger in 2020.
Right. So it's frankly a kind of negligence that I'm sorry we also saw back in 2016. I feel like I'm getting flashbacks. There were polls that suggested that despite Trump being a historically unpopular candidate, Hillary Clinton was too. And for the duration of that campaign, despite all of these wild news stories about Donald Trump being very much an unproven quality, people having really serious concerns and not having quite the stranglehold in the Republican Party yet, then as compared to what he does now, the Democratic Party refused to acknowledge that the more electable candidate might be Bernie Sanders, despite polls showing that he had a 10% lead on Donald Trump as compared to Hillary Clinton's lead, which was for the bulk of the campaign within the margin of error.
For sure. And the 2016 race was close the whole time. There were alarm bells, sirens going off, showing that Hillary Clinton is very vulnerable to this man. To Donald Trump the whole time. People act like it was this great upset, like it was unthinkable. No. Well, that was their punditry. The pundit class wasn't ready for it. The polls showed all along that this was close.
Yes.
And that was the same case in 2020. It was close all the way along. You know, we're talking about thousands of votes across a couple states.
Yes.
That if those flip, if Michigan goes a different way and Pennsylvania goes a different way, that's the ball game in 2016. In 2020, it was going to take Arizona and Georgia. And we're talking about 5 states, one with a heavy Muslim population, states with moderate, independent swing voters who could vote for Democrat, could vote for Republican, could vote for a third-party candidate. We're seeing, RFK Jr. with unbelievable third-party numbers. I mean, they're believable because he's a popular figure, he's done well, but far higher, rare since with the early 90s, since the Perot days. So this is going to be an interesting dynamic, an interesting race where really anyone could win, and Biden looks just weaker than ever. Now, you can say that when push comes to shove, he won in 2020, he won in 22. At the actual when ballots are cast, Biden has some kind of effect that translates to a boon, to him doing better, his party doing better than you would otherwise expect. I expected them to get killed in 2022, and they did better than I thought.
That is true, but again, there's this question about whether or not abortion on the ballot is going to be enough to help Joe Biden overcome, especially when, again, the national polls and whatever happens in a discrete state where abortion on the ballot are different things from what we're looking at when we're looking at him falling so far behind in these swing states in particular, where not just Muslim voters are concentrated, but remember, part of Hillary's problem was losing a great deal of the black vote, the Democrats losing a great deal of the black vote between 2012 and 2016. In the state of Wisconsin, 88,000 black voters that voted in 2012 did not come out for Hillary Clinton in 2016, in part because of her lack of campaigning, but in part because perceptions about her relationship with the black community. And there are also a lot of black voters who are very solidaristic with what's going on in Palestine, that see echoes of it in their own history here in the United States of America. So Democrats inveighing about democracy while knowing that they're backing the candidate that's most likely to lose, saying we got to do this to protect democracy. Voters are going to have to start asking the question, do they care more about winning or do they care more about their party's choice and their coronation here?
Yeah, that's true for the Republicans, too. Yeah. And they're having a debate tonight. Nikki Haley, Ron DeSantis, Vivek Ramaswamy, Chris Christie will be fielding questions from our friends at News Nation, owned by our own parent company, Nexstar. So just tune into that, and we will definitely be reacting to it on the show tomorrow. More Rising right after this.